Hi, beautiful people. It's Amy from Savor Salvage Scent, and I hope this finds you well. Today, I thought I would talk with you about Shalimar perfume, um, one of the greatest classics of all times. A lot has been said about Shalimar, so I thought I might talk a little bit about its history, the fact that we're coming up on its 100th anniversary, and I'm going to talk to you about what I'm calling Shalimar 7 ways. So I have 7 different versions of Shalimar in my collection, and I know when I was starting to collect or getting interested in Guerlain and Shalimar, I had a really hard time understanding the differences, and frankly, I did somewhat until I owned them and could smell them and compare them. So I'm going to tell you today about how they differ for me, what they're like, the kind of basics and the diversions or the changes. So anyways, so for those of you who aren't familiar, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the bottle of Shalimar. It's, again, one of the most popular perfumes of all times. So created by Guerlain. And I'll tell you first a little bit about the history. It was created first in 1921, but some of you, if you read the history, will not see a release date until 1925. And the reason being, there was a dispute about the name. I think that there was another perfume or something else, some other kind of artistic creation called Shalimar. So they were kind of like in discussions until 1925 when it was released. I think it's super cool. It was released at the International Exposition of Modern Industrial and Decorative Arts, so essentially an art fair, which remain really important today. I actually work in the museum field, and so I think it's really cool that this was released as a piece of art in 1925. But it was, again, it was first founded in 21, and so we're coming up on its 100th year. Incredible. Let me tell you a little bit about its name for those of you who don't know. So it was Jacques Guerlain created Shalimar, and he was really interested in the story about Shah Jahan. Shah Jahan was the emperor of the Mughal dynasty in the mid-1600s, so kind of present day, much of South Asia, India. This was a Muslim dynasty that controlled much of that area, and Shah Jahan was the emperor. He was madly in love with his wife, and sadly, in her late 30s, passed as she was giving birth to their 14th child. The Taj Mahal, that many of you are familiar with, was created by or commissioned by Shah Jahan, kind of at the height of, it was a really productive, incredible period for architecture in that part of the world. And he created the Taj Mahal basically as her resting place. And the original bottle of Shalimar, this is a more modern interpretation, they were created to look like an urn. And the name Shalimar comes from, she was an avid, Shah Jahan's wife, the Empress, was a gardener and really interested in her gardens, and the gardens were named Shalimar, and so that is where the name for this perfume came from. Just to give you an idea, in 2017, I saw a fact online, I think it was on Wikipedia, that something like, I think it's Guerlain's still their best-selling perfume, and something like 105 or 110 bottles an hour sell. And so, you'll probably hear from those who love this, wear it, detest it. There's a lot of talk about Shalimar and if it's still on trend, et cetera, et cetera. But for me, the fact that it's this popular 100 years later, when thousands of perfumes are created a year, and most, honestly, fall in 2 seconds or do not get recreated or not collected for long, this is an astounding feat, and this is an astounding thing. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this bottle, which is the Shalimar Eau de Parfum. This was, I think I purchased this about 3 years ago. So I'm going to kind of talk about this as the baseline, and then I'm going to talk about how the other bottles I have or creations compare and contrast to this. So a little more about the history. For those of you who aren't aware, Shalimar quickly gained a reputation as kind of being a bad girl's perfume. It was famously worn by the Flappers, for instance, and it's got this smoky, resinous, again, kind of derived from or inspired by South Asian kind of feel. And so, of course, has resins and incenses, and I think is considered really like the first, although this could be disputed, the first popular Oriental perfume, or what we call as Westerners Oriental perfume. So there's that. Okay, so the original bottle looked something like this, was older, larger, but was originally in Baccarat crystal. So I'm going to talk to you first about this bottle, the Eau de Parfum, that you can still get your hands on. You can find this for, gosh, I think the original price is $100 and $150, but you can find it for $30 to $60 easily now, online in stores. So I'm going to talk to you first about the notes of this bottle, and then I'm going to tell you about the changes that I feel or smell in the other bottles I own. So the top notes in this are citruses, mandarin orange, cedar, bergamot, and lemon. I'm not sure why they say citruses if those other things are listed. The mid notes are iris, patchouli, jasmine, vetiver, and rose. And the base notes are leather, sandalwood, a popinax, which is the same thing as sweet myrrh, so a resin, musk, civet, which you know comes from the cat, from a gland, and vanilla, incense, and tonka bean. So I'm just going to tell you what I smell. And for me, it is badass. I think it's totally more modern, frankly, than a lot of things that are being produced today, or more gutsy, I should say. I think it's perfectly unisex, but I get a little bit of the citruses. Mostly, though, I get a smokiness, a powderiness, resin, incense. To me, this is a really smoky perfume, and that's why I think a lot of people either love it or can't get down with it at all. Like, this is not, I'm going to be frank, I hope this doesn't sound ageist. This is not a little kid's perfume. This is like, it's got, again, a smokiness. And I would even say the way some of the florals and the myrrh and the resins, all the incensey qualities play together, it feels like a bedroom perfume. Even to me, it's sexy, resinous. A lot of people find this old school because a lot of people wear it, and a ton of famous people have worn it. Like, I'm thinking Dionne Warwick, Bo Derek wore it. Oh gosh, I think Hedy Lamarr. I mean, the list goes on. There are like dozens of famous people who have worn this perfume. And if you talk to people, many people will say, that was my mom's, or that was my grandma's scent, or that was my wedding scent. Super iconic and important because it's been around for 100 years. So because of that, a lot of people associate with an old lady or an old man smell. And I'm like, whatever. That ageism does make me crazy. This to me is gutsy. It's smoky. To me, it could be worn anywhere by anybody on the gender spectrum. And to me, I think, again, I'm a big fan of wearing what you like whenever you like, but to me, this is a perfect cold weather perfume because it can hold up. You can smell it. And this is one that lasts for me too, like hours, if not days. Like if I sprayed on, let's say, a scarf or a coat or something, you're going to smell it the next day. It's incredible. But of course, it's up to everybody if they love it or not. I love it. I think it still feels groundbreaking. It's amazing. So let me tell you about how the different bottles that I have or you might seek or have differ now. So this is a parfum Shalimar. Based on my research, I'm guessing this bottle is from the 60s or 70s. You can see how resinous, part of this is because it's old, but you can see how resinous and dark this is. And so for me, the difference between this and what I just talked to you about, the modern interpretation, is this is far more resinous and ambery. Part of that is probably because of its age. Top notes sometimes suffer with age. They get lessened. You might not get quite as much citrus, things like that. But to me, my God, this is gorgeous. If you can get your hands on a vintage bottle, I got this, don't make me admit it to you, I paid like $2 for this at an antique store. They didn't know. And it is so incredible. It's, I would say, less edges, more soft, more ambery, more resinous. My God, it's beautiful from the minute it hits your skin, and it just smells almost even caramely toward the end of the day when it softens. It is so beautiful. So this is the parfum, and I, again, guess about 50 years old, something like that. Okay. Then next, as far as age, and what I have in my collection is this Shalimar Eau de Cologne. Look at this bottle. How cool is this? Talk about modernist. This was created, gosh, I think in like late 60s. I think this was released 67, 68, something like that. My wonderful friend Sarah gifted me this. She got this, I think, in an estate sale. This was originally a 6-ounce bottle. Look at that beast. Some people who are really into Shalimar are really into like those deeper, darker perfumes, resins, incenses. And therefore, they kind of won't give eau de colognes or colognes the time of day because they're a little lighter. I still think these are worth having and collecting if you're into Shalimar. There are really interesting differences. And so I'll tell you what the difference is for me with this. So, for me, this kind of, it has a more candied feel, a more vanilla leaning feel. It feels a little more lemony, but it's not sharp and herbal like the more modern interpretations of the Shalimar cologne. And I just think this bottle is so cool. So I would say, again, this is compared to the newer cologne, or so it's not quite as deep as the Parfum or Eau de Parfum, and it's not quite as sharp as the more modern interpretations of the Shalimar cologne or Eau de Cologne. So there's that. That's my number. That's my third bottle. Here is the more modern interpretation of the Eau de Cologne. So the newer version of what I just showed you. This was likely a bottle from the 80s. And I would say this has a little more sharpness than what I just showed you. It has a little more bergamot. It feels a little more smoky and animalic to me. And to me, I get a little more vanilla and orris iris in this. Really cool. This one's a little easier to find. Yeah, so that's the difference for that one. And then number 5 in my collection is the modern, not Eau de Cologne, but called Eau de Shalimar. So this, to me, smells a little more, if I'm gonna say what's marketed toward men and women, this smells actually the most, I would say, male marketed to me of all that I own. This, to me, you get a little more lime for me, and so I get more of like a barbershop feel, and then it settles a little bit more, but yeah, I get more lime, more bergamot, more of a sharpness, more of like, yeah, kind of like a barber, almost like a fougere, honestly, feel. And I got this, frankly, so that I could kind of wear it in the summer. I don't find myself wearing it in the summer because to me it still smells kind of strong to me and more masculine. So to me, I still wear this. I wear this like when I want to feel fresh out of the shower in the fall or winter. So that's Eau de Shalimar. Love the bottle shape. Isn't it cool? All right. And the last two I'm going to talk to you about are, I would say, really departing from the original recipe or the original makeup. So much so, it's almost surprising they're called Shalimar, but I get that they're kind of keeping the tradition going and want to modernize things. So I'm going to talk to you about Shalimar. There's a Shalimar Souffle, and then there's a Shalimar Souffle Intense, or Intense, and that is this gorgeous thing. This was, sorry, let me look at my notes here just because I can't remember all the dates. This was launched in 2017. I went to Paris in 2018, around exactly this time, actually, 2 years ago. And I went to Guerlain, and this was one of the 2 bottles I purchased for myself to take home. I will do another video on my Guerlain experience of going to the store, the flagship. It's incredible on Champs-Élysées. But they have this really great makeup where you can smell the tops of different bottles, and then you will learn what they are after you do that, which is so cool because you really then get an idea of what do I love the smell of, and then you learn what it is. And this is one of the things I smelled that I just went crazy for, and it had just come out. And so this, I would say, again, is really a departure from the original, but what I would say is similar is it's still very incensey. It's got benzoin, so not exactly like the original recipe, but has that kind of resinous feel. And this is much more thick with like mandarin and orange blossom, and then like the vanillic kind of thing. And so to me, this is a really sexy, orange blossomy benzoin vanilla. It doesn't, I would say where it's really different from the original, it doesn't have the same smokiness, nothing like it. And I wouldn't say it's as lemony, it's more orangey. This is definitely a modern person's perfume. I freaking love it. It's beautiful. I think, again, for those who love the original Shalimar, this might be a surprise to them and they might not be into it. But to me, this is really cool, really bold as a modern perfume. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And look at that bottle. So phenomenal. And then last but not least, I have had my eye on this. So for the Shalimar Souffle kind of interpretation, my understanding is every year they come up with kind of a new bottle design, and sometimes then they change that recipe or they update that kind of creation with a little something new. And this is the Souffle d'Angers. So essentially this is what I just talked to you about. Smells very, very similar, but add much more neroli. I am a neroli orange flower freak. Anything to do with orange, petitgrain, all of it. And this bottle, I was like, yeah, but I think it lists it at like $150 or $160, and that's just out of my price range. And for a long time, it wasn't coming into the States. I think this was released in 18, maybe 2019. And for a while it wasn't coming into the States, and so it was very expensive. You had to basically have it shipped from France, and it was going to cost probably about $200 by the time it made it to you. But I kept reading great things, and finally, frankly, it came to discount sites, and so now this retails for about, I think I paid $55 or $60 on super sale, and it's incredible. It's very much like the one I just talked to you about, the Souffle Intense, although this isn't quite as deep and dark, and then you add some neroli. Some people don't love this because it doesn't have the same smoothness that the Souffle or Souffle Intense have. It has a little sharpness from neroli, but because I love neroli and I'm down with that, I'm all about this. It is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. So I would love to hear from you, to hear, like, do any of you wear Guerlain scents? Some of you must wear Shalimar. I would love to hear from you. What's your favorite interpretation? What are the ones that you love? What are the ones that you've tried perhaps that you don't like as much? Is there anything that you look forward to, vintage or today, as far as collecting or purchasing? I would love to hear from you and learn from you about your collections or your ideas about Shalimar. Thanks so much. I hope to talk soon. Have a great day. And for those of you who haven't, I hope you'll hit the red buttons and subscribe so that you always get notifications from me and that we continue the conversation conversation. I love learning from you and hearing from you. Peace. Talk soon. Bye.